Hello and welcome to the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. This is Yadi Caro. In case you have not noticed, I have an accent. I am from Puerto Rico, and even my accent has not stopped me from doing a podcast in English. Throughout the years, I have gained some confidence with public speaking, but that was not always the case. Even when I graduated with a master's in communications, public speaking was very tough for me. After some years, I practiced, slowed down my speech, and gained confidence since I focused on the message. Our guest is an expert teaching people how to lose the fear of public speaking, no matter your language. Pilar Ortiz started as a newspaper journalist with a fear of public speaking, but then became a prominent TV news anchor in her native Colombia and in the United States. She will share her story today on how she lost that fear of public speaking. Pablo Escobar, by the way, had something to do with it. Today, she teaches professionals how to better communicate in person and virtually. This conversation goes beyond public speaking, and you'll also get some advice for improving your self confidence. Let's listen. Thank you, Pilar, so much for joining me here on the Hardcore Tough Skills podcast. Where are you talking to me from?
Hello, Yadira. Very happy to be here. I'm talking to you from Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah, so nice and sunny.
Yes, enjoying the beach and enjoying the time here. So very, very nice talking to you.
I wanted to talk to you, Pilar, because the topic that we're going to address in the episode today is about public speaking. And I'm going to first read what I have here in terms of your background, and you let me know if I missed anything. So you're an international speaker, a member of the U.S. National Speakers Association with wide experience in the U.S., Colombia, Puerto Rico. You are also a consultant specialized in seminars, workshops, individual courses, and you basically teach people how to not only public speaking, but just overall communications and coaching as well. And I want to talk about that in this episode. But you were also, and that's how I met you, a few years ago, you were an anchor, a news anchor and director, both in Colombia and in the United States. So I want to talk about that too. When I thought of the topic of public speaking, I thought I need to speak to Pilar because she will provide a lot of great information. So thank you again. So why did you decide a career in communications?
Wow, that's a good question. When I grew up in Colombia, in my family, we have a couple of writers. My grandfather was a writer, and my mom, she's not a writer per se, but she used to have a column in the newspaper. So it's kind of in the blood. But when I was making the decision, I wasn't 100% sure about communication. As a matter of fact, I had fear of public speaking, believe it or not.
Oh,
so
really?
when I was deciding, I'm like, okay, I like to write. I like to report, to tell stories, basically. I made my decision and I studied mass communication. But to tell you the truth, Yadira, my whole idea was to work in a newspaper and do not be in front of a camera, do not talk to anyone. I used to go to a conference, a press conference, and I will be one of those like, I'm not going to ask a question yet. I will do it after that other person asks a question. And then after an hour, I wouldn't do it. And I remember going back home and say, Mom, I cannot do it. I think I made a mistake because I cannot really speak in front of a crowd. So it was tough at the beginning. But that's how I started because I really wanted to communicate in writing, basically. But my first opportunity when I graduated from college, it was on TV. And that's one of the beginnings that we don't know when the opportunity is going to be there for you. I said yes right away, despite the fear. And we will talk a little bit more about this, because even though I had fear, I said, this is calling me, this has my name, it's a television work, and it was my first job. And I said yes. And then I started to train myself. And back then, I'm talking 1990, it wasn't coaching, it wasn't that popular, but I started, and I will tell you a story about when I first did my television appearance. I covered the death of Pablo Escobar, one of the most dangerous drug dealers of all times. And it was the first time that I was doing a live television show. So it was the beginning of creating a right mindset to say, this is where I am. I want to tell stories. I want to communicate. I'm going to do it the best possible, the
Wow.
best way
So,
possible.
yeah. So, wow. Of all the stories, you covered that particular major worldwide news. So, no pressure at all to kind
My
of.
first television live show was to 40 million people. Remember,
Wow.
this was, Yadira, this was 1993, before
Uh-huh.
cellular phones, internet, 24-hour news. So when they told me, Pilar, to the airport, they just killed Pablo Escobar in Medellin, I took that flight, I got there, and I was in front of the camera, ready to go, 3 to 1, Pilar Ortiz, reportando en vivo desde Medellín, Colombia. And that
Mhm.
was the beginning of this career of, this is what I have. And the funny thing, I never left television for over 20 years. I never worked on a newspaper
Uh-huh.
until 20 years later. But the good news, I overcame the fear and I learned how to do it. And now I know what it takes to do it. So,
Mhm.
what I am doing now as a business owner is being on the other side, helping people to do it in an effective way, whether you are on TV, on video, in a podcast like we are right now, or in a
Mhm.
meeting, in a job interview, whatever it is, I am helping leaders, executives, entrepreneurs to do it from the other side because I have been there.
Yeah, and I must ask you, because then after you were working in Colombia and on TV in Colombia, you moved to the United States and you started, primarily you were working in a Spanish language TV channel in the Florida area, and you became a news director and then also
News anchor. Mhm.
a news anchor, yes. How was that transition from Spanish to English in terms of that public speaking? I don't know how many times during either, or in general, did you had any fear, for those of us that English is not our first language?
I'm glad you asked this because it came in different levels. I moved to the United States from Colombia in 1998, so it was already 22 years ago. It's amazing how time flies. I didn't know any English at that time. I knew very little English, I should say. I thought I was bilingual. I thought I didn't have an accent. And little I knew that I got here and I'm like, oh my goodness, I really don't know what I thought I knew.
Hmm.
And I started working at Univision at the time. So I didn't need the English. So this
Hmm.
is a tricky thing when you move from one country to another one, that I was in my comfort zone. And I call that a bottle. And I will talk about that because it's the name of my book, Genius in the Bottle. That could have been my comfort zone, kind of a, I don't need English. I'm working at Univision, I'm the news director, I'm the news anchor. I stayed there for 11 years. But I knew, because of my personality, that I needed something else. If I was going to be here in the United States, I knew I needed to learn English. So
Hmm.
I overcame that first mindset that I didn't need it. I went to college, I studied, and I'm proud of my accent. I do have an accent and I'm fine with it. So for, making that 10 years later, I left Univision in 2011. And
Hmm.
even though I was already bilingual, I was using in conversations here, I didn't have the confidence to speak in English in front of a crowd. So here is how the mentality and the mindset are so important,
Hmm.
because everyone will tell me, your English is very good. And I say, yes, it's good, but I'm not 100% fluent. So that
Yeah.
little imposter syndrome. It was 6 years ago, it was 2014, when I got a call from the National Speakers Association, and they
Yeah.
told me, you have been chosen to be the first co-host for a podcast in English for our association.
Oh, wow.
Voices of Experience is the
Yeah.
name of the podcast, and that's for 4,000 speakers around the world. Imagine, in that very moment, Yadira, I wanted to say, no, I'm not ready. My mind went to, like, no, thank you, but no. But I said, can I give you a call tomorrow? Let me think about it. The thinking about it, I hung up, and the thinking was this: what would I tell my client if it's in that position? Why I have my fear?
Mhm.
Recognize the fear. Oh, I'm very good doing
Mhm.
interviews in Spanish. This is in English. So face the fear, identify it, do something about it. I hired a coach that helped me with those EDs at the end. And I'm saying the effort of hired helped
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to do my best. I did the podcast because I knew 1 year later I was going to be upset with myself if I had seen somebody else doing it, because that opportunity was mine. So what I am saying right now to people is that despite the fear, despite the moment that you could think that you don't have everything that it takes, imperfect action is a must. Do not wait until you have the perfect English. I know my English is not perfect at all, but right now I launched a group that is called Say Yes to Success,
Okay.
where I share with people in a virtual setting. I tell them, I don't teach English. My English is not perfect enough to teach English. However, I give techniques and tips and tools so
Mm-hmm.
people build confidence with the English that they have. Do I
Great.
have an accent? Yes. I know that if I speak slower with an accent, people would understand. Yes. So, bingo, I can do it. And that's what I will say: overcome your own mind first, take action, follow the next step, and you will be very proud of yourself. So that's how it happened to me. And now I do speak in front of large crowds, whether it's in person or virtually, training leaders around the world in English or Spanish without thinking about it.
Wow, that's amazing. That you would think, in general, when we think of public speaking, what techniques to use, but it's that first step of recognizing that fear and kind of trying to gain some confidence. And I like your point of the imperfect action. That's very important because we never think we're ready to have a speaking in
And
front of
we
big
will
crowds.
never be ready.
Yeah.
Imagine you if I say, Jadida, do it in German.
Oh,
We are
no.
never ready, but we need to take the first step to be ready every time we can, because otherwise those opportunities are going to be taken by somebody else, and then we are going to feel upset about it, and they were ours first.
Now, you have trained many people, as you mentioned, in English or Spanish. What's a common thing that you see, a common error that you see with people when they try to just public speak to either small groups or bigger groups? Is there a particular thing that you see commonly?
Yes, I think the first one I would say is that people don't believe in themselves. So they need to get out of their head first. They start thinking about a lot of different things that really don't matter, or they are not even there. That people are going to judge them, that people are going to say something about them. And if they do, what happens? So the first thing is the mind. When the person doesn't have the mind in the right place with the right attitude, thinking, yes, I can, I'm working on, and I'm not saying fake it until you make it. That's not what I'm saying, because that little voice will say, BS, that's not true, you are scared. Is understanding, why am I scared? Why I have fear? So your mind is the first place. Believe that you can. The second one is to have the courage to say, what can I do to make it better? Because in the same place that I say perfect action, that doesn't mean mediocre. It doesn't mean don't do it better. It means, do you need a coach? Do you need a program? Do you need a friend to talk to? Do you need to read more? Do you need to watch a movie with closed caption? Still, now these days, I like to watch TV with closed caption because I learn more, and I'm always learning new words. So in public speaking, practice and preparation will be the tools to succeed. Nobody can do it for you. We need to do it for ourselves, and everything starts in your mind. When we have a thought, we create an emotion, and we take action. When those three things are in sync, we are going to accomplish what we have in mind. And that means a new job, a better position, more salary, better relationship with your kids, with your spouse, etc. Because communications is all over, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious too, because is there a particular difference as public speaking to a crowd of people that you have in front of you versus now that we're day to day via Zoom meetings or at work? Is there any recommendation that you have for those people that now we're interacting with our coworkers via a web conference?
Yeah, it is. The basic is the same, but it definitely there are some changes because what happens here, we are going to have limited space. So right now, right here, I only have, if people are just listening to this interview, what I'm referring to is the frame on video. I have limited space on a video conference, like a box. So what does that mean? That you cannot see my hands. In the normal position that I will move my hands, you cannot see them because usually we move them at the waist level. Okay. So what does it mean? I need to be aware of this new frame in order to have my hands a little higher so people can see them. But on TV, on video, the hands look huge if I have them close to the screen. So I need to be aware of having them closer to my body. Yeah. So yes, the techniques are different. However, what it doesn't change is the connection, building rapport, being authentic, projecting your voice, working with your smiley eyes, your expressions, your body language, your structure of the message. That remains the same. And for some people, it's very difficult to overcome and to say, I need help. Because everyone, when I talk to someone, Yadira, usually people think they communicate effectively and they're very good presenting, or they have so much fear that they don't do it at all. So they're in both extremes. Oh, I'm okay with that. No, I'm not going to do it at all. Yeah. And both extremes are dangerous because when we think we cannot grow anymore is when we more need to tweak. Am I being effective? Am I changing my voice in order to convince, to persuade, to influence? Or on the other extreme, am I wasting my time? Am I losing opportunities because I am not saying yes to this? I am letting the fear to stay there. Preparation and practice when it comes to public speaking, mindset, yes, you can, and act on it if you need help. There is so much to be done that starting now is like the right thing to do.
I love this. Setting the mindset is so important. And I must ask too, because our audience is usually people in working IT or kind of knowledgeable in terms of technical terms. And sometimes when we're trying to communicate to people that are not so technical, the message kind of gets lost in translation, so to speak. So what's a good advice for that you have to kind of start improving that or making the message clearer?
I will say two different things, two different ways of seeing that, because when you are speaking about something that is very specific, like technical stuff, something that you are the only one who understands it, we have to be very aware of the other person. In that moment, less is more. Pretend is the first time you are talking to someone about that, because what it happens is we get very used, and it happens in other industries as well. If we are talking about health insurance or we are talking about, I don't know, cable services, it tends to happen as well, even though it's not as technical. We start to use words like, letters, HP, right? And like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you are saying. So in that moment, less is more. Be connected with that person, meaning active listening. Ask questions, be quiet, and listen. Listen to understand, not to respond. That's a big one. Listen to understand, not to respond. So if the person has a knowledge about the topic, wonderful. If they don't, you are ready to help. So that's the first part. Less is more. Be active listener and be there to understand, not to respond. On the other hand, we can control what we communicate. And usually I work with a lot of engineers and people in finances, for example, CPAs. They don't like to speak in public That is the truth. Maybe in your area is similar, right? Technical, they
Yeah.
are very good in technology, but there is not their
Yeah.
happy place,
Yeah.
but they need it. So that's the other part. Being open-minded to say, instead of fighting it, let me do something about it. Let me be better. It could be a class, it could be something to make it better. And I'm going to give you an example for me. For me, numbers had been something that is not my happy place, like uh, invoices and QuickBooks and all the numbers, because I am more the storytelling and this and that. However, I used to be fighting that. Oh, I know, I'm terrible with numbers. Until one day I said, I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to change the way about thinking about numbers. I'm learning to use numbers. I am working on it. I hired somebody to do the numbers, but I learned to do the basics. Everything changed because when I put my focus in the right thing, energy flows and we receive more of that. Instead of fighting it, work on it and you will see the results with your team, with your family, with yourself, with your pocket, with your bank account, everything.
This is great advice. I certainly appreciate your time. Before we go, I do need to ask you about your book because I see, for people listening, they may not see it, but it's the El Genio de la Botella. Is it available in English, by the way?
Not yet. We have so far El Genio de la Botella is only in Spanish. If you are in Ecuador or Colombia, you can buy it in the bookstores, main bookstores. It's available digitally, any place in the world, audiobook or digital version. It will be in English in the 2021. That's the idea. We will have it in English as Genius in the Bottle. And the whole concept of this, and I'm glad you asked, is that I believe every single person listening to this podcast, it is a genius because we all are born with our own talents, whether they are in one area or the other one. And when we find that flow, that we do what we like and we learn what we don't, it's going to work. So you are a genius. But if you are trapped in a bottle and the bottle is a metaphor, excuses, fears, a toxic person, a toxic relationship, a job that you don't like, you are not going to shine. So breaking that bottle or moving, or sometimes they break the bottle for you, and that happens when maybe you lose your job, it's okay. You are the genius. You move with your talents, with your experience to a different place. The important thing about Genius in the Bottle is recognizing where you are, what do you need to do, and being flexible about it to keep growing. So yes, it will be in English soon. For right now, Spanish speakers, I would love for people to read about it because it will be a motivation to be better every day.
Yeah, thank you so much. And how can we find you and find if we want some training, coaching from you, or any of the resources? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way, social media. My handle on Instagram is my name, Pilar Ortiz, and then the TV as television, TV. PilarOrtiz.com, definitely my website. LinkedIn, it will be another way, Pilar Ortiz. I have a lot of different programs. I have a group in Facebook that is free and is El Genio de la Botella con Pilar Ortiz. I'm always sharing techniques and tips.
Oh, great.
And I do have programs when people have accents or when they need to do videos or storytelling, different things. So I want for people to be better, and please do not hesitate to reach out because it is a great opportunity to start and for you and your team. So you have different options. I am looking forward to be in contact with everyone and social media. I'm very active in all these platforms, Facebook as well.
Yeah, and I forgot, I needed to ask you as well, because before we started the recording, you had mentioned that you're also teaching people how to talk clearer with a mask on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm scared. Like a lot of people, probably we were facing uncertainty. But I focused in what I knew how to do, what to do. So I started working in the communication skills beyond the mask. People started calling me Yadira from companies, and I started doing a certification to help people to communicate effectively beyond the mask. Because if you think about it, we only have the eyes to communicate with others. So we better express with the eyes. So I share the techniques, the voice, what to do, how to do it effectively. So yes, we are doing training for corporations, certifying people in how to communicate effectively and safely beyond the mask. So that is one of those different ideas that I didn't change my training. It's the same training that I've been using in public speaking. However, with that virtual pillar, it's a new way of doing it through the mask or through video, via Zoom, via podcast, and we adjust accordingly. So I'm very happy to help people because, again, for me, everything happens in 3 pillars. The internal pillar, which is the mindset. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can learn a new way of doing it with the mask. The second pillar is the external projection, how to work your body language, your voice, your message, etc. And the third pillar, if I have to do it with a mask, if I have to do it on video, if it's a microphone, if it's a podcast, when those 3 pillars are aligned, magic happens.
This is great advice. This is advice to internalize, listen to it again, and I have to remind myself of a lot of these things. So I certainly appreciate your time with us in this podcast. So we look forward to get in touch with you through the either social media or the groups that you mentioned. So, and to that training, I will be interested in getting more into that training of how to speak properly with a mask, keeping people safe, which is important. So thank you so much, Pilar.
Absolutely, Yadi. Thank you very much. And I love the name of your podcast, Hardcore Soft Skills, because as you can tell, it's a passion of mine. And I love helping people to feel better about communicating their own skills and their own talent. So I appreciate your invitation. I wish you the best with this podcast, and we will be in touch. So good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. If you have learned something today, share this episode with others. To find out about new episodes and skills to learn from, subscribe via your favorite podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. For more resources, visit our website, hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.